Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to the School of Personal Finance. So I've been thinking a lot about retirement planning recently, and it might be because I did spend over a decade of my career dealing with people on a daily basis, trying to figure out when they could retire, how much money they need to retire, and then once in retirement, how much they could take out every year, the distribution strategy, where they should be pulling the money from. So I wanted to share with you the things that I learned over that time frame, and also talk about why I'm a little bit nervous for my generation and younger generations as the landscape has really started to change. I'm also going to dive in a little bit to like the 4% rule and the bucket strategy. These are all distribution strategies when you start taking money out of accounts, and also why I'm trying to set myself up to work for much longer than I originally anticipated. Even if it's part-time or in a smaller capacity, but I think working longer is going to be a good idea for most of us out there. All right, let's get to it. All right, real quick before I get into it, if you could do me a big favor and go check out schoolofpersonalfinance.com. I've been working on it the last few weeks, updating the website to show the membership site that I'm going to be rolling out, where I'm going to offer education and personal financial advice for a low monthly fee for people who typically wouldn't hire a financial advisor. So I'm trying to help as many people as I can, and I thought that a low-cost monthly membership site would be the best way to do that. If you could go check it out, just tell me what you think of the website, how it looks, if it speaks to you, all that fun stuff. I would greatly appreciate it. You could email me at rich@schoolofpersonalfinance.com, or you could leave a comment down below. And I'm open to some criticism. You know, I'm a big boy, so whatever you got to say, it's totally cool with me. I'm just looking for some honest feedback. Thanks a lot. All right, so I thought the best place to start when talking about how much money you need to retire would be to tell you a little bit about my experiences over the last 10 to 15 years and what I saw make people the happiest when they were actually in retirement. Because really, that's what it all comes down to, right? Is what makes you the happiest and able to enjoy retirement the way that you want to. So I'm going to go through a couple of things that always jumped out at me that really made the difference between having a very nice, happy retirement compared to people who might have been stressed out a little bit more than they would have liked during retirement. All right, so number one, and in my opinion, it's the most important one, unless you have millions and millions of dollars, then it doesn't really matter, but that's having more guaranteed income coming in every month than expenses you have going out every month. So between Social Security and the pension, if that covers your monthly expenses every month, my experience, you are much happier in retirement, because then you don't have to worry about your investment portfolio. The volatility of the market, it's not going to keep you up at night if you're not relying on pulling out that money every single month in order to make ends meet. So guaranteed income, it's a huge piece of it, and unfortunately, it's just very hard to come by these days, especially for my generation and those younger than me. We have to come up with a new plan in order to have guaranteed income in retirement. And that leads right into number two, where managing an investment portfolio and relying on it each and every month definitely adds a lot of stress, especially if you feel like you're cutting it close as far as retirement savings goes and longevity and not running out of money. Now, number three, this was pretty consistent across the board. People are happier when they have no mortgage in retirement. Now, it could be a personal preference. Some people choose to not pay off their mortgage and they would rather just invest that money. But in general, when dealing with people in retirement, if they had no mortgage on their house, it alleviated stress. It made retirement a little bit more happy for them. And then number four is having great healthcare coverage. I mean, this is just going in the wrong direction. The costs just keep going up and up. The uncertainty for my generation, the generations that are younger than me, we have no idea what the future is going to look like. That's why you always hear me talking about investing in an HSA account for your healthcare expenses in retirement. But for like my parents' generation, it was much cheaper. A lot of times their employer covered them through retirement. It's just not that way anymore. So that's a big wild card for us. And having great healthcare, it really alleviates a lot of stress in retirement. And then number five, I found that it was much easier for people to enjoy their retirement money and actually spend it if it was tax-free. So it might be worth biting the bullet and paying taxes now by investing in like a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA. Because once in retirement, it was always in the back of people's heads. They're like, you know what? I'm not going to take that money out because I don't want to pay the taxes on it. And then they would get mad at required minimum distributions when the government makes them take money out to pay taxes on it. So having tax-free money in retirement, those people, they always seemed a little bit happier than the people who had these huge traditional IRAs and 401ks where it was like a tax bomb waiting to go off. Just to throw my disclosure in here, obviously I don't know anything about you. I'm not giving you personal advice. None of this is legal or tax or investment advice, just for educational purposes only. All right, so now I'm quickly going to go through the steps to figure out how much you will need to retire. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think I'm going to work much longer than originally planned. So to figure out how much you need to retire, the first step is to just take a few minutes and think about what your life will look like once you actually reach that age to retire. Are you still going to have a mortgage? Do you plan on traveling a lot for the first few years? What is life going to look like? And then how much are you going to need each and every month? What are your monthly expenses going to be? Now, I've learned through experience that the first few years out of retirement, people usually spend the most money because they're traveling, they're going and they're having fun. We call that the go-go years. And then the spending starts to gradually decline as they get older and older. So you have the go-go years right after retirement. Then you have the slow-go years, which are maybe, years like 7 through 15 after retirement, and then you have the no-go years where you're really not going anywhere and doing anything too exciting, so your spending, it goes down dramatically during those years. So that's the first step, is to figure out how much income you're going to need every month. And now you have to adjust this for inflation also. So if you're not retiring for another 25 years or so, then $6,000 today, you obviously need a lot more 25 years from now. So you could use a simple financial calculator. I mean, inflation right now, that's another huge variable through all of this that makes me nervous, because it's very low. It's been very low for the last few years, and at some point in the future, the way that we print money, you have to figure that inflation is going to be going up. All right, and then the second step is to calculate your guaranteed income. So that's going to be your Social Security, pension if you have one, maybe you have a lifetime annuity through work or something that's going to give you a lifetime income. And then also if you have rental properties, even though it's not guaranteed, you can estimate how much the monthly income is going to be. And then you take the amount that you want to spend every month, your expenses. Let's say, for example, it's $8,000 a month, and you subtract your guaranteed income. Let's say all you have is Social Security, maybe between you and your spouse, and let's say that that's $5,000 a month of income. You each get $2,500 a month for Social Security. That means that you're going to have a $3,000 gap that you need to make up for from your investment portfolio. And then other things to consider as well is going to be like home equity. Maybe once you retire, you're going to downsize. You're going to sell your house, you get a big chunk of money, and you only need, a portion of that to buy a smaller house and to downsize, and you'll be able to put that money in the bank as well. Or if you're ever going to get an inheritance or any other, life event that's going to throw some money at you, you want to keep those things in mind as well. All right, so now we just figured out that you need $3,000 a month in order to put all the pieces together to get by in retirement and have enough income. So how much do you need to have saved in your accounts in order to generate $3,000 a month? So $3,000 a month, that's $36,000 a year. And the rule of thumb that is out there is the 4% rule. Now, this is just a rule of thumb. It is so specific to everybody's situation that you cannot go by this, but it's just a good starting point. But if we use those numbers, 4%, you would need to have $900,000 saved between, retirement accounts, savings, Roth, traditional, between all of your investments, your pool of money, you would need $900,000, where you could take 4% of that would be $36,000, and that would last you for at least 30 years according to the 4% rule. Now, there are a lot of assumptions that go into that depending on how the money is invested, but it's just a good starting point to give you an idea of how much money you would need to fill that gap. So right away, you could see why the people who have guaranteed income sources that cover their monthly expenses, they're the happiest. They don't have to worry about this stuff. If they save 900 grand, they could just use it whenever they want to go travel the world and throw parties. But if you're in this situation where you need to fill that gap, that 900 grand, it's accounted for. Now, with all that being said, I don't love the 4% rule because, like I said before, you have a declining spending curve as you're in retirement. So the first few years, you might find yourself where you are spending $8,000 a month, but then as time goes on, you might be spending less and less depending on what's going on with your life. So it's not a hard rule, but it's just a good starting point. So now another strategy that people use in retirement, which I love, but it does have some shortfalls, and that is what's called the bucket strategy. That's where it's like a time segmented strategy where you say, my first 3 years of retirement, I'm going to keep in this first bucket, which is just going to be cash or cash equivalents like money markets, CDs, things like that. So I know no matter what happens in the markets, I have the next 3 years of my life sitting here safe and secure, so I don't have to worry about the volatility. If the market goes down tremendously over the next few months, it's not going to affect my life. I have the next 3 years sitting in safe, secure, cash equivalent type of accounts so that I could sleep well at night. And then you have a middle bucket, which is for, maybe from years 4 to 10, and you use like intermediate term bonds and maybe some dividend paying stocks and some other things that aren't as much growth as your third bucket, but they're not as safe and secure as your first bucket. So that's the intermediate term bucket, and you use that to fill the first bucket as you start to deplete that one. And then you have your third bucket, which is going to be your growth bucket. That's going to be stock market, index funds for growth for later on in life. And then you could use that third bucket to refill the second bucket as the second bucket refills the first bucket. Another problem that everybody's facing right now with these very low interest rates, if you go to a bank, to a CD, to treasuries, like a 10-year treasury is paying below 1%. It's very hard to get any kind of growth in any account and depend on the income unless you're investing in stocks. And that is a risky proposition, and it's not for everybody to have a very aggressive portfolio, especially when you're in retirement. So this kind of environment has forced people to get more aggressive. And if they haven't, then they've been left behind. Then they're sitting in cash, their money's not growing, where people who are invested aggressively, they're seeing their assets rise. And this is why you also see a big imbalance between people who have assets and people who do not. And you get left behind if you're not investing in assets. So all these reasons kind of bring me around to why I think I'm going to work much longer than I had originally planned. And it's a lot of the reason why I started my own financial planning business, because I figured that I love what I do. I could do it forever. Even if I dial it back a little bit and I don't work as much, I could still generate an income long past the time when if I just wanted to retire, at age 62 or whatever. And the same thing with my wife. She has a business that she loves, and hopefully she'll be able to do it for a very long period of time, even if it's part-time or a quarter of the time, just to generate some kind of income, which kind of replaces our pension. It's another reason why I am so big into investing in real estate, because that was another way for me to kind of create our own pension, because we're not going to have one out there. So yes, real estate is a headache, and there's a lot of things that go along with that, but I'm looking at that as my long-term pension. So between the real estate and working part-time, quarter-time, whatever it is, on and off, taking a year off, going back to it until I die, those are the ways that I plan on making up for these shortcomings with not having a pension. And I always encourage people to wait as long as you can to take Social Security. I mean, there are some planning opportunities between husband and wife, or if you're not in good health, there are, situations that come up that could vary from that. But for the most part, waiting as long as you can for Social Security, it's the best annuity that you could have. It's the best guaranteed income. You get a cost of living increase with it as inflation goes up. So I'm a big fan of waiting on Social Security. But the next decade is going to be interesting because all the baby boomers are retiring. And that's really the last generation where a majority of them had pensions. So it'll be interesting to see as these people in their 50s and 60s right now go into retirement, ones that don't have a pension, how they're able to survive, how they do if they saved enough money to be able to enjoy their retirement, or if they're just going to end up working for much longer than they had originally thought. All right, everyone, that is it for today. Worked through a lot of stuff in this video. Hopefully you found that helpful. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button if you are not part of the community already. Hit that like button if you got value out of this video. I'll see you again next week. Thanks.